A lot of people are wondering, particularly self-described conservatives, of course, just why conservatism is on such a rapid decline in the West. Many theories have been proposed to explain this particular decline. However, this video will present a novel to the mainstream, as in, I haven't seen anyone say this yet. If there's someone saying something similar, tell me about them or their theories. Anyway, the theory will be novel, as far as I know, on why conservatism seems to be on the verge of extinction, with even self-purported conservative parties exposing obviously liberal beliefs like LGBT acceptance, like the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom. Simply put, it is as follows. Western conservatism is not a coherent ideology, or an ideology at all, in its current form. Premises. Number one. So most premises for this are obvious, like stuff exists, whatever. I'm not critiquing anything fundamental, but I will clarify some things as they need to be noted because they are most relevant to the conclusions. Number one is that people are ideological. So this is in contrast to what some people seem to think, that people don't don't have a clue why they're voting as they do, which is not really the case. Ideology is a set framework of beliefs or philosophy, if you may, that has coherent and objective basis and it deals with societal issues. The main drive for people's voting in Western democracies is actually their ideology, and they use this ideology to decide who they'll vote for. So obviously there are some materialist interpretations on this, which I will not cover too much, but the people often vote candidates even though they're seen as corrupt or bad, etc., because of their similar ideologies. This, I think, proves that people vote by ideology. Most people do have an ideology. Now, I will name drop that first past the post is bad and limits voter choice, but I don't think even if we placed it with something better that the results would be radically different. Of course they would be. We should replace first past the post because it's not a good voting system. But it's important to clarify. Most voters agree on specific values and frameworks of candidates, not specific policy. This is why parties can and do exist without focusing mostly on telling you what public policy they're espousing, which is bad and good. I'm not going to say what's bad and what's good in this video particularly. Number two, there exist large ideologies, as in many people subscribe to them. Like, it's not just party membership, it's deeper than that. The main ideological rift today isn't very economic, contrary to popular belief, because the two main economic ideologies today are basically social democrats and neoliberalism or some modification of neoliberalism, which are pretty similar economically. There are four relevant ideologies today in competition: liberalism, nationalism, and capitalism, and something that conservatism is a part of, which I'll mention later. Suspense and because better structure. Conservatism is not a coherent ideology, it's actually a corpse of something else, more or less. As I have said, most contemporary political parties in the West are liberal, as in focusing on personal choice and liberty in societal issues, not the same as anarchism, by the way, just to clarify that, just in case, but liberalism's fundamental value is personal liberty in social sphere, not so much governmental economic sphere like anarchism. For anti-capitalism, it's economic equality or equity, and for nationalism, well, it's the collective culture or ethnos in the case of ethno-nationalism. You may have noticed that today conservatism is just 10 years back. If you're more inclined to these beliefs, you're complaining about this particular state. But this has not always been the case, as I'll say soon. So, what ideology is conservatism actually a part of? Well, conservatism has always had some different influences since it's an inclination for things to stay the same. It's a path and an ideology, always has been. There is something very particular to the Western conception that has been central. This something is Christianity. Modern conservatism is a downtrodden part of political Christianity, the value of which is obviously fundamentalism. It's a coherent and objective ideology because its answers are what the Bible and Church say, or just the Bible. But there are differing opinions within this group too, of course, but they are more likely different because they believe in the Bible, since that's how ideology works. You may also call it a Christian right or Christianism or whatever. You have the Christian left too, but they're not even less popular nowadays. So the reason why liberals seem to be taking over everything, them damn liberals, is the main competition to liberalism in the West throughout history has mostly been political Christianity. There have been surges of fascism, but not for long, as you may know, and communism, but also not in a democratic form. And communism was a thing; it wasn't democratic within Eastern Europe, so not really a good gauge of the everyman's beliefs and inclinations. But it was a thing. But it too didn't have much lasting power. Although it was a serious competition, that's the basis of the Cold War: liberalism versus communism. And with the downfall of Christianity in the West, this has struck political Christianity because less Christians, and so conservatism has been born to keep political Christianity alive, but alive. So conservatism is a reaction. In our case, it's a reaction to liberalism. So it can be only defined by what it is not. It is not whatever liberalism is espousing right now. So, as you know, liberalism also seems to be changing because these are broader ideologies that I have been talking about rather than more specific subsets. Why liberalism changed is actually because it has been incorporating some ideas of the new left, the social aspect of it, or as the anti-liberal, what Sarah commentators would say, cultural Marxism. Those ideas aren't as popular, but they're not popular enough among the liberal political establishment. And our government, to some extent, they can be implemented. This has been done. This has incredibly quickly shown that conservatism means nothing. Because in 20 years, we went from concepts like deconstruction of race, gender, etc., being obscure to being part of mainstream political debate, and conservatism quickly becoming closer and closer to this progressive stance. It has awakened many people to this, and well, conservatives don't have an answer, or because just 10 years ago reaction. So they're evolving even further because they seem like regressive fools without any reason other than back in my day and without any other cause than I don't like change, which most people don't like as a reason. So liberalism is like a little opposition and it can quickly change society quite a bit. And capitalism seems to have been getting a resurgence with movements like Occupy and the release of the Panama Papers and various other things. Actually, it is more popular than before, for like as in like 20 years ago, for example. But most politicians, people associated now, are almost exclusively focusing on the liberal goals. So it's like when self-proclaimed Marxists, Leninists on like Reddit, for example, with the everyman, are like almost indistinguishable from liberals. It's a serious opposition. So the real opposition left is nationalism, which is not even a thing in some parts of the West, only in Europe. So, in Europe, it's so focused on preventing deconstructions of concepts like ethno-pluralism and not and against the concepts of bringing immigrants more, that you don't see it criticizing too many of the political stances of liberalism, which may change depending on how it fares. Well, that's the reason. Wait. But you may be asking, so why is there so many polarization in America? And similar topics about polarization today. And I am saying that liberalism is so influential. While political Christianity has encountered a great decline in politics, among the everyman is still holding out because there are still Christians. And the most practicing Christians in the West today are in countries like the USA. And the USA has a lot of people, so it's visible. There we see the conflict between socially new left social democratic liberals against classical liberals and political Christians, which are holding some strength. In Europe, political Christianity is much weaker, classical liberalism too. So we see a conflict between socially new left social democratic liberals and anti-immigrant nationalists who are not fascists as much as liberals like employing that word. Things like minor changes to abortion laws, like in Poland, are not serious resurgence of fundamentalism. They were either, as liberals say, but instances of conservatism who, as I already said, on the political scene are mostly characterized by not having a coherent ideology, but just by being reactionary. This is why politics seems so stagnant now. Liberals predominate without greatly different opposition. They would also like to keep that way, of course, which is why they like to go on about extremism being bad, which is defined as ideologies, worldviews, philosophies that are not liberalism. And especially not on Trump, because we have to talk about Trump, algorithm, and well, he was a wrong person. So what about Trump? He was a fascist, fascist Catholic. What about him? So no. So I will probably I know both I don't know both liberal, most people on the mainstream political spectrum are saying this, but Trump is actually a liberal. He is a liberal employing some rhetorics of nationalism and political Christianity. But if you actually look into it, he's like the second or third most progressive president in the history of the USA, as far as I can tell, cultural. This first is Biden now. The second maybe Obama instead of Trump. But yeah, it's not that different, okay? However, I think some of the modern day ethno-nationalists will say that I'm base now, okay? And yeah, they're right. Trump is not actually that different. He's just your average liberal, not even particularly even conservative. Actually, just that he was successfully used the rhetoric of conservatism and nationalism, which got the media. Political Christianity, and I say conservatism, which got the media worried. But in his policy, he was basically a liberal. So democracy. Why did I mention democracy? I mention it because basically there are no serious ideologies within every man or politically today based on anti-democratic thought. At best, like an anti-democracy gets like 10-15% of the support. I know because like in Italy, that's the number of people, for example, who say Mussolini was based, or well, not completely cringe, based on cringe, because good and bad, like a year ago, just in case you didn't catch that. And philosophically, all the mainstream ideologies today are based in the Enlightenment, which loves democracy a whole bunch. Political Christianity being more or less inspiring, it depends, but all of them can be traced back to the Enlightenment. So, a quick jab at the political materialist interpretation for today's ideologies. which I won't be talking about specific materialism. And I know I said I won't talk to them, but it's boring. Basically, people, I want to say that the internet and public education, etc. nowadays is a thing. So, material is always important. We'll see, and we do see more and more people specific and intricate ideologies, which you may have noticed, you know, like about this alienation because of the internet, but it's not just not that, you know, but people have more leisure and time to think about this thing. Anyway, the reason why education correlates with liberalism instead of political Christianity today is merely because most professors subscribe to liberalism now, and schools just happen to be predominantly more in cities, which is why liberals are most common in cities with political Christianity, holding out in more rural areas, and obviously traditionally religion is the most important framework. But conclusion, I'm yeah, I'm pessimistic about Christianity getting back into the spotlight. The main epistemic view of the West right now is the scientific method, which cannot verify some of the central doctrines, like the resurrection of Christ, which are extremely important to Christianity. Also, why specifically in colleges and stuff, liberalism is much more popular because it's much more popular within the scientific, with the it's a more popular philosophical framework. But why that is, well, that's a more deep topic now in the history of philosophy. But like every ideology, liberalism won't be around forever, since it's unlikely that liberalism will stay for long, because it's actually relying today mostly on the core of old guard liberals, with most of its everyman supporters being like like redditors, which aren't exactly now popular on whether you like it or not. One of the two most important media politically, the internet. Like most people, liberals are not particularly like in critical theory and stuff. But more or less just go around it. So while it's making quick changes, it does not seem to have long-term stability. Instead, corroborated by many forecasts, secular theories, etc., that the 2020s and 2030s will change society a lot. Like so many predictions seem to converge on these 2 decades being fundamentally important, whether they be technological, secular, societal, religious, whatever you name it, economic, you name it. Man. So what will happen is that a new ideology will emerge, become popular while taking on some elements of anti-capitalism and nationalism. Of course, more specific ideologies and more in-betweens. That's why it will take on elements. But most elements are not so specific about these things. So that's why I mentioned the 4 big ones, and also I don't want this to be a whole book. And I'll be a great opponent to liberalism. Or maybe the scientific method will die out for some reason as a main episteme. Like maybe we'll actually see collapse of society. Then we'll just go back to religion being the main thing, or very important at least, or maybe we'll discover something else philosophically. I don't know, but it's unlikely since stuff like that so far has happened very rare. In closing thoughts, well, this was a short essay on my thoughts and observations on this topic. I hope you liked it. Critique is welcome and wanted. I like to hear your thoughts as well, both on the validity of my theory and rebukes from the perspectives of alternative theories on why what we call conservatism is declining and just was seemingly converging with liberalism. Especially since this wasn't deeply researched in the academic sense, but it's more based in my general knowledge observation. So it's actually kind of more true to the more original form of the essay. And yeah, I know that calling video essays that is cringe, but cringe culture is dead. Except I'm totally unironic about it. I'm not hypocritical. I try to be genuine. Thanks for watching.